Alright, gonna break down a lap I just did here at Nords. This is the VLN NEC version of the GP track. So it's a bit shorter and a bit different than the 24-hour layout, but hopefully that's not too difficult to figure out by yourself. So here we go. Into turn one, this is lap one on a full tank of fuel. Braking just after the 150 board here. See, pretty much right on it. Gas is starting to come off. Brakes are starting to come on. All the way down to first gear for this hairpin. I missed this a little bit. You want to be right on the curb here. You don't want to touch this pylon here. You can get a cut track penalty if you do that. Coming into turn two here, there's no real good reference here. Also one other note, I don't like to swing all the way out here. I like to keep it a little narrower, more in the groove. You're more apt to spin the car if you go too wide. It's kind of just feel. I just roll off the gas and I don't brake super hard into this corner. You can kind of see on the inputs down here. Kind of right as the track starts turning, I bleed off. And this is all second gear through here. Try to get the car all the way to the left and pick up the gas slowly. You can see I maybe brake 20% there, maybe. Back on the gas, use all this track. If you go all four tires onto the curb, you will get an off track here, so try to avoid that. And again, I also don't have a good reference for braking here. It's just kind of, you got to do a lap or two and feel it out. I guess really it's sort of right on this kink on the outside when the outside starts to curve, but it's hard to see in real time. So braking, I roll second through here. And really we're just rolling, trying to stay, you want to stay as all the way left on this curb to open this up, because we're really worried about the exit out of this corner down the little short straight. You see, like I'm back on the gas here, but then I lift to get the car over, and you can also get a cut track penalty. You can get a off track on this side, on the inside here. So don't go. You got you can put 2 on the Astro here, but you can't put all 4 past the white line. And then use all of this runoff to open up the exit. Again, if you go too far too early, you can get an off track here, and you can get an off track on the grass up here. Braking just before the 100 for the hairpin cutout in the VLN track. So pretty much right on the edge of the grass here. Hard braking down to, again, I roll second through all of this, and you don't have to be super tight through here. You're more concerned about carrying the momentum through here. And pretty much there's a big dip, so you have to wait to get full throttle until you're past this dip in the corner. See, once the car settles, then I'm back to full throttle, using all the track here. I brake pretty much right on this line before the 50 for this left-hand corner. See, pretty much right there, we're getting on the brakes. And you want to use all of this green on the left, like that. I've never gotten off track over here, so I don't know how far left you can go, but pretty much this is exactly what you want to do. Third gear through here. I don't take second. I like keeping third. Roll the momentum, easier to pick up the gas sooner. You don't want to use all the track because it makes it harder to open up this next part of the GP track. So stay left and then swing it left to open this up. This is kind of an awkward corner, bit off camber. So I don't brake super hard into this corner to make sure I kind of extend the brake zone get it into the corner. Because if you miss this corner, the camber just falls away from you, so you lose all the grip. So you want to make sure you get tight on this curb. Pick up the gas as soon as you can. You can use this green bit on exit. If you go 4 off, you get off track. Coming up to the chicane, the end of the GP track, I'm braking pretty much right in between the 100 and the 50, maybe a little closer to the 50 if you're really pushing. Yeah, back up. Yeah, so pretty much right in between them, just past the 100. Down to third for the chicane. Kind of a tricky fast chicane. You want to use all of the curbs, but it's really easy to get off track as well if you go 4 off. This is pretty much the limit of what you can take. You can see I just barely have tires on the inside of the line here, but that's what you got to do to be fast. In the race, taking it off track here isn't the worst thing in the world. This is one of the 2 spots where it's kind of routinely easy to get off track, but it's not such a big deal. But you want to take all this curb and then take all of this curb here, so you can pick up the gas as soon as you can. See, I'm already picking up the gas before I'm even all the way through the corner. Then here, again, for this corner, coming on to the Nordschlife, I don't like to swing all the way out because the track kind of falls away and there's not a lot of grip out here. If you go wide, it's easy to spin the car coming into this corner. Kind of a awkward corner. Again, it's a little bit off camber, especially to the outside, so you really want to stay tight. And also you want to roll like quarter throttle all the way up this corner. You can't pick up the throttle all the way until the car is set onto the Nordschleife part of the track here, because the car over this crest, the car jumps, so you can't pick up the throttle hard until the car settles after this. And now we're onto the Nords proper. So coming into first turn to each switch corner, brake pretty much right at the end of the barrier on the right here. See, right past it, I'm starting to pick up the brakes, and you want to open up this bit of the track. Use this bit of the track to open up the corner a little bit. So you can see I'm not, again, so a big theme of the Nords is you don't want to brake super hard, super late, because the track's real bumpy and it's super easy to, too much ABS, blow the corner, things like that. So the big theme of the track is don't push super hard into the braking zones and focus on exits. So like I'm braking like 50% into this corner, just hold the brake to keep the car settled into the corner. You can go more left than you think when you're inside the car. And then you don't want to use that curb on the exit. This curb, if you mount this curb, bad things happen, so don't do that. Dropping down into Hotzenbach here. This fast corner is flat. If the track's real loose for some reason, maybe it's a lift to like 50, like 75% throttle or whatever. But if you find yourself blowing the corner, you probably need to turn in earlier. You can see I'm really starting to turn in from here, but like this set of graffiti here, you should really be turning in. And again, don't touch that curb, bad things happen. All right, now into this braking zone. What I generally do is I start to lift on this set of graffiti here on the track, and then the end of the graffiti is when you really need to be on the brakes. So you can see lifting there, and then right at the end of the graffiti, we're picking up the brakes. And then down to third, I take third gear through this whole technical section that's coming up here. You see, so what we do here is we brake hard and then lift, still holding the brake, but lift the brake so the car can turn in, and then pick up the brake a little bit some more, and then bleed off the brake to get through this right-hander. And then here, so this corner is not the problem so much, it's the next switch kind of chicane thing. So you want to start lifting to stay left, and then you can take a bit of this curb on the right. You just don't go too far right, because you can get off track here. And also if you stay on this curb all the way to the end, like say you're still on the curb out here, the car can bounce in a weird way and spin. So I took a pretty aggressive line through here, but it is fast that way. Then you can use this curb on the left and this curb on the exit. They're okay to use. See, I kind of nibbled that one there and used a little bit of this one on the right. You can use a little bit more of this curb on the right. Then for here, I brake at the end of the graffiti here. That's kind of in this shadow that's in the track. And then you definitely want to use this curb on the right to help open up the exit, because we got a bit of a straight here. This should be flat. Now we're coming up to the flute flats. So pretty much right on this access road here is when I lift and turn in at the same time. You can see pretty much right here is when I lift. You don't have to lift a lot. It's pretty close to being flat. Just a bit of a lift to get the car to turn in, and then bam, right back on the gas. You really want to be as close to this curb as possible, because there's a whole bunch of, you can even see it, there's a bunch of camber in the road, and if you miss it, you're just in the wall. So you really got to be, it's okay to hit this curb a little bit. You really want to be tight on this curb. And then this next one you don't have to be close, you're just carrying the momentum. Then it's flat all the way up to Schradenkreuz. Don't do what this guy did. Hold a line, please. You should be tight there all the way, obviously. So now pretty much on the 5 cam sign is when you lift to turn into Schradenkreuz here. It's just the lift, like 50%. The road falls away again, so you want to be tight on this curb. And then before the end of the curb, you have to start braking. Pretty much right when the track straightens up is when you start braking. And it's hard on the brakes down to second gear through here. And you want to be as close to this curb as possible. I missed this a little bit on this lap, but down to second gear, yeah, you really want to be tight on this curb. I kind of diamonded it off here to straighten up for the exit, which is fine, but not the most optimal line. You really want to hug this curb all the way around. It's okay to touch this curb if the car is under control, like I am now. If you're sliding the car and you hit that curb, you're dead. So be careful of that. Line of least resistance down through Foxhole here. Then pretty much right on this sign on the right is when you start lifting and braking. Just gentle braking. You can use this curb on the left to open it up a little bit, but you don't gas it up at all through this section. Once you start slowing down, you're on the brakes the whole way into this technical section, Adenauer Forest. So I take third gear through this right-hander. You speed up a little bit, and then pretty much right on this set of graffiti on the road, you slow down and take second. I get close to this one and then kind of just let the car straighten out and swing back out for this left-hander. I missed this a little bit, but you want to be tight on this curb and then tight on this curb to open it up. You don't want to touch this curb. I touched it a little bit on this lap. It's not bad, it just kills all your momentum. And you do want to use this curb to help open up the track. So now I forget the name of this corner, but pretty much like halfway in between these stripes and the end of this patch of tarmac, you lift like 50%, maybe a little more, but make sure you get in all the way tight here, and then you can pick up the gas, and then right on the end of this little curb on the right is when you start braking for this left-hander here. And I keep third through here. You can, if you know you're blowing the corner, you can take second to help the car slow down because you really want to keep tight through here. Again, you lose the camber of the road if you go wide. So it's even okay to, I would rather nibble this curb a little bit than go wide. I hop this curb, you don't really want to touch it. Again, this curb's not so bad, it just kills your momentum. It also means you were probably on the gas and too wide, too early. All right, so then this downhill double apex right, pretty much right on the signs here, I start braking on the second sign here. I keep this first one, you don't want to be super tight on, and pretty much I'm in third. I delay the downshift to second until I want the rotation for the exit. And then you want to be tight on the second part of the apex. So like I'm a little wide, come out, and then straight line the exit. You can use, again, this curb, if you're under control, you can use it. If you're sliding the car out there, you're going to hit the wall. So you just have to be careful with that. This chicane should be flat out in a GT3 car. If you're having trouble with it, you probably just need to turn in earlier and get the car settled. But that transition is flat, and then just before the beginning of the curb on the right, this is miss hit miss coming up here. So we're in fourth gear. I don't shift up to fifth, I keep fourth and then just roll fourth all the way through this. Again, this section is called miss hit miss because ideally you miss the first apex, hit the second one, and miss the third one. I'd rather be a little, personally I like to be a little tighter to the first one. So the idea is that you really want to hit this one and open up, and don't hit this third one to go through there quickly. So then coming up to this little tricky braking section here, so you have a braking zone that goes through a corner and downhill into a hairpin. So pretty much on this little patch of grass here is when I start braking. And we're in fourth gear through here. I keep fourth until the car is settled through this kink. And you can see what I do is I brake hard initially, get off the brakes some so the car will turn in, and then pick up the brakes more again here. And then you go down to second gear through here. And you can open up this first bit of the corner, but I like to be tight so I know I'm going to make the second bit of the corner. Again, you don't want to, you can hit, I hit that curb, you ideally don't want to hit it, it just kills your momentum. Same thing with this curb on the right, it kills your momentum a bit. You can track out more, you can open this up more and track out more. That would be ideal. All right, so through this is a nasty little off camber left-hander here. Just before the end of the curb on the right is when I start braking. I'm already starting to pick up the brakes a little bit here. From fourth, I prefer to do a late downshift down to third. Into here, you want to stay tight because if you go wide, you just keep going into the wall because this whole section, this corner is all off camber. And then we're coming into this on camber right hand corner, but it's extremely bumpy through here. This whole section is really bumpy. So pretty much right when the road straightens up, I get on the brakes. Again, this is all third gear through here. And then you can pick up the throttle very early, but you can't go full throttle. You got to roll it on very slowly until the car is fully settled on the exit. Again, this is one of those curbs, if the car is under control, you can use it. But if you're sliding into it, you can really unsettle the car, possibly spin through here. So It's another curb to be careful with. All right, through Nicky Lauda corner into Bergwerk. This is a very important corner because there's a super long straight section after it. So the exit of this corner is critical. So this sign, which you can only see, I think, if you have one of the object settings needs to be on high to be able to see this sign. But this is a critical sign because this is where I lift and start braking off of that sign. If you're not braking and you get to the Yokohama sign, then you're gonna blow this corner or be into the wall. So down to third through here, and you don't want to, if you go in too soon, you'll kill your exit because this corner sort of tightens up as you go. So if you get in too early, it kills your exit and it's really bumpy. So you got to stay wide until you see the road start to drop in, and that's when you need to drop into the corner. Pretty much right, like it happens to be right where this sunshade transition is, but pretty much right here is when you want to be tight on the curb. And then do not use this curb on exit. This curb will, at best, it kills your momentum. At worst, you're dead. So just avoid that curb. And now we're flat up to Mutt Curve, aka Bravery Corner. It's just line of least resistance through here. All right, coming up to Bravery Corner. So for optimal line through here, you got to use this bit of extra curb on the entrance, and there's another bit just like it on the exit that you need to use to open up the track as much as possible. See, I got 2 through here, and also it happens that pretty much right at the start of the curb is when I lift. You don't need brakes at all through this corner, just to lift to get in. Like lift to 50% throttle, and then once you know you're in, you can pick the throttle up. And this is another curb, this inside curb. You want to be as close as possible just to open the track up, but you don't want to touch it because it'll bounce you wide into the wall. So that's another one to be careful of. This is the curb I'm talking about. You want to use it to open the track up. It's even okay you can even, assuming the car is under control, you can even put a tire in the grass and take it off track. It's not the worst thing in the world. This little kink is flat as long as you have the track opened up all the way. You don't want to touch that curb because it'll bounce you wide. And then we're braking into this hairpin corner. So what I do is I come to the inside of the track so I can draw a straight line from here to this curb to the inside curve of the hairpin. And I'm braking pretty much after this, like when you're in the car, you can see this bit of graffiti, like where this graffiti ends. That's when I brake, and it's hard braking down to second gear. And you can see I pretty much just I have almost no wheel input from here to here. It's just the car is going, I'm braking in a straight line. It's just the way the road is going is bringing me into the corner, and then I turn in once I'm down to second gear through here. And this corner is a pretty early apex because of the way we entered it, but this corner is tight and then opens up. So you can start picking up the gas pretty early here, and you can use this curb to help on the exit. So then coming up to the carousel, where this kink in the curb is here, that's where we lift and start braking for the carousel. You can see just before, that's my reference just before it. And then you want to land into the carousel still on the brakes. That's how you get into this quickly. If you don't hold the brakes, you'll spit out. If you don't do that, then you're going too slow. And then you just hold like quarter, third throttle, rolling around the carousel until you know you're close enough to the exit. Pretty much once you can see where the exit of the carousel is when you can start picking up the gas. So pretty much I know I'm already picking up the gas here. I know I'm towards the end at this point. Then this little section is flat. This left here is flat. So what I do for this section is I hold fourth gear, don't go into fifth. Just before the beginning of this curb, brake. And then you want to stay, you're not taking the optimal line through this corner. You want to stay left to open up this right-hand corner. At the end of this curb, it's a downshift to third for this right-hander. You don't need much brake input at all. It's just really just a lift to get into here. If you're under control, you can use a little bit of this curb to open up the road, but wouldn't necessarily recommend it. And then pretty much at the start of this graffiti here is where you start braking for this right-hander. And you can see I didn't use a ton, and this is when you don't want to use a lot of brake into. I hold third through here and you want to pick up the gas as early as possible. There's a lot of, if you get into this corner, there's a lot of camber in the road that'll help you around. All right. Now we're coming into Whippaman, start of the lovely downhill section. That corner we just went through is the highest point on the track, just FYI. So this is flat into here. I took a little too much speed into here. Really what you want to do is like around the set of speakers or like halfway through this corner, lift and stay right to open up this left-hander a bit more. But ideally you do want to use a little bit of this curb on the left and abuse this curb on the right. Like that. You can use this curb, it's okay. You don't want to touch this curb just because it'll bounce you wide. But you do want to be tight on this because this corner's off camber. And then pretty much just before this Yokohama sign or the VW logo on the road is when you start braking for here. And once you downshift so this corner we downshift from fourth to third, and then it's third gear all the way through this section. So this corner has the camber of the road's a bit funky, so I don't use a lot of wheel input until you're already into the corner and the car is settled. You want to stay tight to open up this, but this corner is a bit funky because you're coming across the crown of the road and the camber of the road is changing, so it's almost like your car is like going over a big hill. So you have to really wait, and I went in maybe a little bit too early because you don't really want to touch this curb on the right just because it'll bounce the car wide. But you have to wait to turn in until the car is settled coming across the road here. And then you want to use all of this to open the track up for you. If you go 4 past the line, you'll get it off track, but this is pretty much ideal with the left wheels right on the curb. Then just past this graffiti, just before this curb ends, is where you start to brake for this next corner. Again, you want to be super tight on this corner, because if you don't, you lose the camber of the road. Again, this is a curb. If the car is under control and you're just tracking out, you can use it, but it will cause problems if you're sliding into it. Now this corner is called Ice Curve. I forget why it's called that in German, but it also happens to be a very slippery corner, so you have to be careful. I brake just before. There's this little patch of tarmac with no graffiti on it. I brake just before it. Again, this is all third, and you want to This is a corner you want to late apex so you can straighten up the exit. And you do use this curb on the right to open up the exit. So now we're going down into the jump. So pretty much right on the start of this curve on the right is where I lift. I lifted a little later, but the idea is you want to land gently into here because you need to brake and shift down to fourth through here. And this first corner, this first apex isn't so important. It's the second one because you want to pick up the gas as soon as possible because you have another long straight section. So the exit of this is super critical. You can touch that curb. Do not touch this curb. It'll bounce you pretty much right into the wall. You can use this bit of curb to open up the track. Absolutely do not touch this curb because you're going over a bit of a jump here. If you touch this curb, you just go flying. You're dead. Don't touch that one. And then through this section, you just follow the camber of the road. This one, you can touch this curb a little bit. You can get it off track here. It also doesn't feel so nice going through the wheel with all the force feedback with the bumps. But again, just following the camber of the road. Then setting up this last section before the long straight, pretty much right on this orange bit of barrier or just before this black pylon is where we start braking. So I'm like right in between them. So this is from fifth down to fourth through here. And I picked up the gas because I was trying to go fast, but you can even just not even pick up the gas at all and just roll up this hill. It makes this next corner super easy because this corner is super tricky. It's all off camber. So again, this is one corner where you got to get it. You want to get it in early and be tight on this curb, but don't touch the curb because it'll bounce you wide. You can use this curb a little bit to help open it up if you need to, but I don't. I try to avoid it because the gravel will cause problems. And the exit of this is much more important than the entrance, so that's why you can just roll up the hill. And right on this bit of graffiti here is where we brake for the second carousel. Absolute pig of a corner. It's third gear. You're just trying to wait until you know. So you don't want to pick up the gas too early and jump out of it because then you lose drive. So you just want to get to where you can pick up the gas and be in the middle of the road here. All right, and then to start this sweeping right-hand section, you don't need any brakes at all. Just at the beginning of this curve before the yellow bit of graffiti, you just lift off all the way into that right-hand kink. You pick up the gas.
Your oil temperature is getting a bit high.
You pick up the gas, swing wide, and then before you even see this corner, you start lifting. Get the car all the way back to the inside of the track, and then when you see this curb, then you pick the gas. Then you pick the gas up all the way. And then it's all about maximizing the run onto the straightaway. And just FYI, this car you don't want to rev it out on the dash. Pretty much as soon as the two red lights in the middle pop up, you shift. So like shifting from fifth to sixth is at like 257k. All right, last braking zone on the track. So this left bit is flat. The beginning of this right curb is flat. Right on the end of the curb is where you start braking for this section. And you do want to use this bit of road on the left here, this access road, to open up this right-hand corner, and use this curb on the right to open up the track. So you can pick the gas up as soon as possible. Don't touch this curb on the left because it'll bounce you into the wall. You can short shift to third if you're struggling for traction through there. And that is it. One lap of the Nordschlife. This was a full tank of fuel, 758. Track is also not the, it's 29C, so the track was good, but not super good. But yeah, hopefully this is helpful. You can always message me if you have any questions. Thanks, guys.